overwhelmed with negative. Doing a Chip and Dale kind of gimmick is not a heroic thing to do.
Shawn Michaels saw an opportunity to be more and more of a top guy and also to be more and more of a prick.
Nobody breaks into this wrestling business to work their way to the middle. I mean, if you don't want to be on top, you're in the wrong business. I don't really care if you want to have dinner with me. Do you want to wrestle me? Oh, you do? Okay.
I don't think that they were really that different, which is probably where the real-life rivalry came into play.
First day when I walked out and I ended up trashing Shawn Michaels on the interview about his Playgirl magazine centerfold. Before I went out, I said, Shawn, is it okay if I bring up that Playgirl magazine and take a jab at that and say something about it? And he was, no, go ahead, say whatever you want.
World Wrestling Federation needs a hero. They need a role model. They need somebody they can look up to, not somebody that poses for girly magazines.
And I came back and Shawn was just crushed. He almost looked like he burst into tears.
Now we're doing live TV, and these guys are saying things on live TV about each other.
Shawn made reference to Sunny Days. Sunny is Tammy Sitch. She was one of the valets. She was the first real, big pinup girl of the WWF. And Shawn was making the inference that Bret was having some kind of an affair or some kind of relationship with Sunny.
Even though lately you've had some sunny days, my friend, you still can't get the job done in any situation. Oh, boy.
Now, from a fan's point of view, it's getting exciting. But if you're the other guy, you're hating the dude who's talking about you. Because now you got to call home and explain that to your wife.
You don't mess with a guy's wife or his family, or else you can find yourself laying in a ditch somewhere. So we're in Hartford, Connecticut one night at the Hartford Civic Center. And all of a sudden the door busts open and in comes the Brooklyn Brawler. And he says, hey, Vince, Shawn and Bret have just gotten a fight in the bathroom.
Shawn finally comes into my dressing room. We haven't talked for about a couple months. And I just remember I was just trying to be nice. I almost forgot that we ever had issues. And I said, hey, Shawn, I was brushing my hair. And he goes, you think I'm gonna talk to you? And
whatever it was, Bret just leg dived him and took him down right there.
So I grabbed him by the hair and swung him around the dressing room. I think his feet were actually off the ground a couple of times. If anything, it was like two prostitutes fighting in downtown or something.
Here comes Shawn, and he's hot. And he has got in his hand a handful of his hair. It looked like a small possum. And I'll never forget this. He said, this is an unsafe working environment.
As far as I know, I think if anybody was sleeping with Sunny, it probably was Shawn.
As the backstage friction between Bret and Shawn intensifies, Vince begins to lose the TV ratings war and is forced to cut costs.
Vince comes back and looks at the commitment that he had made to Bret Hart, and it was a drain. It was a drain on the company for what we were bringing in at the time.
Vince told me that basically he couldn't afford to pay me the contract that he'd given me. It kind of broke my heart, where it's like, okay, I get it. I remember I got off the phone from him and I said, I guess I'm done. I hung up with Vince and I signed my WCW contract.
I can't remember exactly what day or when I heard that Bret had made the deal and was going to WCW, but Vince told us Bret was going to finish up at Survivor Series. He'd drop the belt and then he'd be free. It didn't turn out that way.
With Bret leaving the company, Bret wasn't just leaving the company. He was leaving the company and going to our competitor that was beating us in the ratings. To have our champion leave the company is bad enough. To have them leave the company with the championship is a kick in the nuts.
The time-honored tradition is when you're leaving a territory or a promotion, you lose on the way out.
I got to tell you, in the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot of worry about it because it was Bret, and we thought that there would not be any issue with Bret dropping the championship to whoever we asked him to drop the championship to.
When I first heard that I was wrestling Shawn was maybe about 3 or 4 weeks before Survivor Series. But anyway, so Vince pulled me, he's all excited, he goes, we're gonna drop the belt to Shawn. So when I saw Shawn, I thought this is your chance to open the door for sort of dialogue. So I remember when we shook hands, I said, Shawn, I just heard that we're wrestling at Survivor Series. I said, I want you to know that you'll always be safe with me in the ring, that I'll always be professional. I would never do anything to hurt you or injure you or anything like that. And he looked at me and he said, I appreciate that, but I just want you to know that I am not willing to do the same thing for you. And he turned around and walked out of the dressing room and slammed the door.
Vince, even though he knew that Shawn and Bret hated each other, somehow he thought this match was magically going to go in the ring and everything was going to work out like he wanted. And the closer that we got to the match, the more obvious it was that it was not. One of the things he had given Bret in that brand new contract with all the bells and whistles was reasonable creative control of his character and the way he was presented.
I'm the boss of my last 60 days. Why would I lose to Shawn? He's disrespected me. I'm not wrestling Shawn, or I'm not putting Shawn over under any circumstances until he proves me that he's got enough respect for me to put me over first.
And I was on Bret's side, because Shawn was the prick, not Bret, but we had to get the belt back.
The news of Vince's current champion signing with his main competitor would spell his defeat in the ratings war. With his back to the wall, Vince must get his belt off Bret, and what he's about to do will echo far beyond the wrestling world. With his last match in the WWF less than 24 hours away, Bret Hart is refusing any scenario which has him losing the belt to his real-life nemesis, Shawn Michaels. Bret is growing suspicious of what his boss, Vince McMahon, might do.
Showed up that day and I was ready for my match. But I did have suspicions about the referee. I remember thinking the only way they can screw me, if Shawn will never pin me or make me tap out. So I wasn't worried about that. I said, but the way it'll work is they'll get the referee.
Hello, I'm Earl Hebner. I'm a referee. My relationship with Bret was great. Most of the time, he always wanted me to ref his matches. People think, oh, I can count to 3 and it's over. That's not the ball game. We're sort of a coach. You're thinking for 3 people. It's very, very hard.
Okay, so let's get into the Montreal stories.
Do we have to? Just kidding. The day before that show, I got on the plane, got in my seat. The stewardess came back and said, Mr. Hebner? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you have a first-class seat. I said, my ticket don't say first class. She said, Mr. Hart bought you a first-class seat. So I went on up and sat beside Bret, and we talked, and Bret said, will you promise me one thing? I said, what's that? He said, you won't count me out? I said, nope, I will not count you out.
I said, you know they're gonna ask you to screw me tomorrow. But he got the tears in his eyes and he got his lip quivering and he was like, the hell with that, I swear to God on my kids, I would never, and he was so adamant. And I shook his hand and I said, just tell me if something like that's gonna happen.
Complicating matters. A film crew producing a documentary called Wrestling with Shadows is following Bret to capture his last WWF match.
From the second I land, I've got the entire High Roads production film crew. They're filming, and they got the boom mics and the whole thing, and they follow me where I went.
It was like a lot of people that I didn't even know all around the building.
The idea was that Vince would get with Bret. I think that Vince felt that once he got in front of Bret face to face, that they would work something out.
But I remember the whole camera crew come in, like they wanted to mic me up, and I remember, yeah, I kind of don't. It's not how I operate. He goes, just in case.
My name is Harry Zufrani. I was the sound recordist on Wrestling with Shadows. The director told us, look, we gotta be very low profile about this. Nobody should know that Bret Hart is wired.
It was a private meeting, and Bret went in wired. Didn't let Vince know that he was recording it.
I never ever wanted to leave here with any kind of bad feeling. But this week has been a bad week for me. I feel kind of betrayed a little bit. The way this whole thing has been depicted, it's really hard for me as a hero here to come up short.
I was determined to stick to my guns, and that I was not backing down. And right away, Vince goes, well, what are we gonna do?
I think what I'd like to do is get through today. I think tomorrow I should just go in and do my speech and forfeit the title. I think it allows me a chance to leave with my head up and leave in a nice way.
I would think it'd be a run-in type thing. But,
yeah.
But I'm open to
No, I think that's...
I'm open to anything.
So we're gonna start fighting before the bell starts.
I don't think this match has officially even started.
Finally, after about 10 minutes of brawling out and fighting out in the crowd and stuff, I eventually fight Shawn back to the ring, throw him in the ring, and now the match starts.
They get in the ring, I ring the bell to start, and I'm going, God, don't put the sharpshooter on. The match lasts 10, 15 minutes.
Look at this!
Oh, putting Bret in the sharpshooter. Oh my gosh, how humiliating. He's gonna beat him with his own finish.
Shawn actually didn't know how to put the sharpshooter on. He steps through the wrong way, folds my legs the wrong way, and I moved my legs and switched them the right way. I remember when he put it on, I flipped over, I could see Vince McMahon, and I could see him, he's got this cold look on his face, and he's yelling it to ring the bell. Ring the bell, and he kept saying it to the guy, ring the bell.
As the match was going on, I'm going, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I hated it.
And I remember in that moment of looking at the timekeeper, and Vince snaps at him, ring the bell. Oh, they're screwing me right now. And I remember reaching back and showing that I wasn't submitting, and I grabbed Shawn's leg and started to reverse, and you could hear the bell bing, ding, ding.
If I hadn't rung the bell, Vince McMahon was gonna ring that bell.
And at first I was like, I wanted to just kill Vince. I wanted to just jump through the ropes and just punch him out. I couldn't believe he did it to me after all the years that I gave him and all the matches and all the hard work, and he would disrespect me like that. You son of a bitch.
I jumped out of the ring, ran across the floor, jumped the hockey fence, and could still hear the bell ringing, jumped in the car, and we drove off.
I had enough sense to paint WCW backwards so that you could read it on TV.
Bret did the WCW for the fans there in Montreal. But it was, it was what it was.
I remember I had a nice, good gobber spit, and I remember I just leaned over the top rope.
Hollywood couldn't recreate something better than that.
I wrecked a bunch of monitors and threw $100,000 headphones out into the crowd and stuff.
Because of a couple of guys that couldn't get along, they hit on the most talked about match ending in the history of professional wrestling since the dawn of time.
Widely viewed by fans as wrestling's most treacherous act, the Montreal Screwjob would tear the lid off of wrestling's sacred brotherhood. But its true architect has yet to be revealed.